Ladies and gentlemen, can everybody hear okay? Yeah. I'm Fiona Hill. I have the great honour of being the moderator for today's session. Thank you, Ambassador Huisken. We were waiting for you to come, so we'll be able to get started. It's a great honour today to be with two really remarkable women, Yulia Navalnaya and Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who know no introduction whatsoever for this and any other audience. And because, of course, this is the anniversary of the tragic death of Yulia's husband, Alexei Navalny, Yulia will be beginning the session with a short set of remarks, and then Svetlana and I will join her here and we'll get on with the discussion and also leave some time for all of you to be able to participate in this. So without any further ado, Yulia, I'd like to invite you up to the podium, and thank you so much for being with us again.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on Munich Security Conference. It's all the time an honor. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Yulia Navalnaya. I stand here today because 1 year ago, on February 16, the opening day of the Munich Security Conference, my husband, Alexei Navalny, was murdered. He was killed by Vladimir Putin. You all know this. In fact, many of you were in the main hall of this very conference when it happened. It was here in Munich a year ago that my journey as a public politician began. Many of you offered me words of support, sincere, meaningful, and warm. I'm very grateful for that. And now, a year later, we meet again. For me, this past year has been one of endless pain and hard work, the only way I know to cope with grief. I wanted to do everything in my power to ensure that Alexei's death wasn't in vain, that the sacrifice he made would bring his struggle, his ideas closer to victory, to his dream of free European and peaceful Russia. When I announced last year that I would carry on Alexei's work, that I would step into public politics, thousands of people reached out to me from all over the world, but most importantly, from every corner of Russia, from Moscow and from small towns, people of all age and professions. They believed in Alexei and his vision for our country. Putin tried to kill their hope, but they didn't give up. They didn't back down, and in doing so, they gave me strength. Throughout this painful year, I traveled every week to meet with someone. I thought of those people, of Maria, a copywriter from Elektrostar, a small town near Moscow, of Anton, an engineer from Novosibirsk. As long as it was possible, they attended every protest in Russia. As long as it was possible, they campaigned for independent candidates in elections. They put up flyers of the Anti-Corruption Foundation investigations and shared them with their neighbors. But for the past 3 years, they haven't been able to do any of this, because now they would be thrown in prison for it. They would join the list of 1,500 political prisoners in Russia. They are not ready for that, but they can't flee. Maria has a sick mother. Anton simply doesn't want to leave his hometown, his home country. They are neither seen nor heard. But does it mean they don't exist? Have their beliefs changed? Have they suddenly started loving Putin? No. They are here. They exist. Maria, Anton, and millions more like them. On the past year, as I met with dozens of politicians, leaders, journalists, and experts, I tried to be their voice, to represent them while their own voices were silenced by Putin's repression machine and propaganda. And what did I hear in return? To my great surprise. No, I even should be honest, to my great disappointment. To my disappointment, some of my interlocutors spoke and acted as if they were convinced of two things: that Putin will never disappear, that Russia will at some point simply vanish. It sounds strange. I would even say it sounds absurd, doesn't it? And yet we see constant attempts in the West to engage with Putin, to negotiate with him, as if Putin were a permanent fixture, a long-term factor in global politics. At the same time, we see no real effort to engage with Russia, with Russians, with Maria and Anton, as they don't exist, as if you could just close your eyes and they would disappear. Not in this terrible past year, not in this 3 years of full-scale war that Putin unleashed against Ukraine, not in the 11 years since the annexion of Crimea, not in the 18 years since Putin stood here in Munich and delivered his famous speech, openly declaring his course of confrontation with the West. In all this time, no real effort has been made to develop a clear and coherent Western strategy towards Russia. A strategy aimed at reaching out to Russia that wants to be part of Europe, that is fighting against dictatorship and war. That Russia that now sits in prison, whose leaders have been poisoned and murdered. While I may feel uneasy stating such simple, obvious truths from this stage, I will keep repeating it. For this privilege, my family and I have paid the highest, most terrible price. Putin will soon be gone, and Russia will be free. And many rational strategy towards Russia must be built on this fundamental truth. There is no point trying to negotiate with Putin. Since I started to write this speech, a lot has changed. So I think that I need to put some changes and to say, even if you decided to negotiate with Putin, just remember, he will lie, he will betray, he will change the rules at the last moment and force you to play his game, just as he did a year ago, when it seemed that prisoner exchange deal was imminent and Alexei Navalny would be freed. There are only two possible outcomes for any deal with Putin. If he remains in power, he will find a way to break the agreement. If he loses power, the agreement will become meaningless. But Russia will outlive him. The war that Putin started by his own decision will end the moment he is gone. And a window of opportunity will open. A chance to prevent a new dictatorship in Russia. A chance to return Russia to the European path. The window will be narrow, and action will need to be swift. Which means the plan must be ready now. A plan that speaks to the millions of Russians who are in the underground resistance, in internal exile within the country, and those who have fled abroad, but dream of returning the moment it becomes possible. To people like Maria and Anton, or Yulia. To those who love Russia and believe in it, just as my husband, Alexei Navalny, loved and believed in it. The future belongs to these people, but right now they need your help and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yulia. Please have a seat. I'll sit on this end, and perhaps you and Svetlana could both sit here. And if anybody else would like to come and fill in the seats, please do. As I already said at the introduction, this is a great honour to be with everyone here today. We have many familiar faces, I think, to both Yulia and Svetlana in the audience, both people who are long-term supporters of both of them individually, and many people who have great expertise in Russia, Belarus and the region. And I think, Yulia, you've really summed up, I think, for everyone here, and I'd like to turn to Svetlana to offer, some of her thoughts right away. The really difficult challenge that we face about how to give people a voice who are otherwise not heard. And we've heard already, here in the halls with various speeches, this is the era of the strongmen, literally the strongmen. This is also the era of where you have only a right to speak if you are elected in some way. And obviously in countries where either elections are either ignored or they're falsified or they're manipulated in many different ways, that makes it extraordinarily difficult for the people who want to see something different in the future, irrespective of whether this is in Russia or Belarus or Venezuela or many other countries that we can think of. So if you think about this, given you have been doing this for a very long time now, Svetlana, by travelling around, trying to give voice to people of Belarus, you actually contested an election. Your husband contested election. Of course, Alexei Navalny did as well in Moscow, and you've already had movements that you have had in place for some time. Have your thoughts changed in some way, Svetlana, about how to get attention and how to get people's voices to be heard in this particular environment? As Yulia said, things just while we've been here at the Munich Security Conference, just in this short day, have changed dramatically. What have you learned over the last few years, and what gives you hope at this moment, and what troubles you the most?
The topic of repressions is not very highlighted at the moment because people maybe got used to it.
Yeah.
So it's Belarusian people, since 2020, promoting this aspect of dictatorship, telling what repressions is, telling about political prisoners. And at the beginning, we really enjoyed huge attention and support from the democratic world, but then the war has happened. Of course, it distracted attention, and we fully agree that now all the attention should be on Ukraine, because the victory is the key element of peace and security in our region. But nevertheless, political prisoners are still in prisons. Repressions are still continuing in Belarus. And I really don't want this phrase, political prisoners, becoming a buzzing word that nobody is paying attention to. It should be like those people sacrifice. Those heroes who are now in prisons should be inspiration for our leaders all over the world, to act. Not just as it was joke after 2020, words of condemnation is not enough.
Right.
To defeat dictators, we should act and act united. So, for years we really managed to find so many friends of Belarus who really trying to keep Belarus and repressions high on the agenda. And they're most painful when you're communicating to people and when you see empty eyes. You see the topic of repressions and political prisoners doesn't touch the heart of these people, so it's painful because it means that this person will not help, or he doesn't want to deal with this topic. So new challenges appeared in the world. And, the focus is changing, but still I see that this topic is painful. Maybe it's less attention to this, but it's up to each of you in this auditory audience, to keep this topic high on the agenda, because repressions, means dictatorship. And we have to get rid of dictatorship together, and only strong and decisive democratic world can defeat it.
Thank you very much, Svetlana, and obviously a call to action for many of the people who are here who do obviously have some influence on these issues. I mean, Yulia, listening to what Svetlana has said and thinking about the audience that you have here, what would you like people to be doing at this particular moment? Not just to draw attention to the issues that are still very much live, even though they may be overshadowed by other events, but also to concretely help you to give voice to those people who are engaging with you, who write to you, who reach out to you through whatever channels that they can, and would like to see some change. I mean, what do you see now that Europeans, particularly people have been exhorted to think about Europe very clearly and very dramatically, let's just say, today. What would you like to ask your fellow Europeans to be doing, to be thinking?
Well, I think that to attract attention, it's a lot. For example, for me, it's question. It's not so, it doesn't bring me to difficult situation like to a lot of people who doesn't have such a loud voice. Thanks to Munich Security Conference and Mr. Hagen especially. Thank you so very much for all the attention to Russia and Belarus. It's very important not to forget about Russia as well. That there are, as I mentioned in my speech, there are a lot of Russians who we need just probably not to do a lot, just to send the signal that we remember about them. I can be more loud here when I'm in Germany, in any other European countries, but we of course need to encourage these people inside Russia to be more loud, because the day when changes will come could happen, tomorrow, like all the time in Russia. Probably it wouldn't be very soon, but we need to be prepared to do this. That's why I think any attention to Russia is very important still, and any attention to anti-war and anti-Putin people. And I think that also because of not enough of this attention, we started to have a kind of problems, and because they were no, I would say, those people who were against Putin were forgotten one day, and it was very important to attract them.
Mm-hmm. Svetlana, I mean, in terms of, listening to what Yulia has said here, in terms of forging a real movement when you're, both, in effect in exile, we know, through history that exile movements often have a really hard time getting traction. That's exactly why Alexei and you returned to Russia. The idea was that being in Russia itself, being engaged, it was a really way of generating a response. Obviously, given the level of repression, the horrors that we've seen and that you've experienced directly, that makes that extraordinarily difficult. And if you think, the same, case for you in Belarus, how do you feel that you can remain relevant within a movement, connecting, back to people at home without putting them at great risk? Because you've got double layers of, repression in Belarus as well, from the Belarusian government as well, from Lukashenko and people around him, and also emanating from Moscow.
So put so many important subjects.
Yes, well, they're all. It is a very difficult situation to be in, of course.
First of all, about repressions. I think that for Putin, Belarus is like a playground for repressions, because so many repressions are being tested at the moment in Belarus. Because honestly speaking, I think that repressions in Belarus is much, much higher than repression in Russia. First of all, amount of political prisoners. It's 1,200 for all Belarus. At least 500,000 people, 500,000 people had to flee Belarus. Since 2020, 60,000 people went through prisons, and detentions continue every day. Every day in Belarus, 12, 15 people are getting detained. So they are keeping people in the harshest conditions ever inside the country or inside prison. For example, my husband is already 4.5 years in prison. In March, it will be 2 years that I haven't heard a word from him. There are so many people who are kept incommunicado. Lawyer is not allowed to visit them. Letters are not delivered, nothing. I don't know if he's alive. I fully understand, Julia's feeling. I don't know where he is. My children continue to write letters to their daddy. They never receive letters back and asking, Mom, maybe our daddy is dead, or maybe he doesn't love us anymore. So, these questions. We are so grateful, to new Trump's administration that day before yesterday, 3 people have been released from Belarusian prisons. It's just coordinated efforts of American side and the Belarusian democratic forces. We're really working hard to release people. Several waves of releases took place in Belarus. It's not because of humanity of Lukashenko. It's just because of pressure that is constantly was put on Lukashenko's regime. So, if a person, what necessary for any person in prison to do if they want to leave the prison? The latest case, Polina Sharenda-Panasiuk, activist, mother of 2 children, and she was very sick. She is very sick, and she was about to die in prison. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Then this term was prolonged for 1 year more and 1 year more. So she thought that she might never leave this place. What did she has to do to leave jail? So first of all, to record confessional video. KGB is recording, where she declared, yes, I'm guilty, I'm sorry, I will never do this again. Second, she has to write pardoning letter to Lukashenko. It's very humiliating when you are activist and when you are for free, democratic, independent Belarus, and you have to write this letter to Lukashenko's regime. Then she had to sign agreement to cooperate with KGB. Mm-hmm. So she was given a secret name, and she was told, when you are released, you have to say what democratic forces are doing. When she was evacuated after she was released, she was evacuated very fast from Belarus. Of course, she made big interview, just telling that, look, they wanted to make me spy, but I'm here with you. So all these steps. You know what she said, interesting? They just not only want to break your will, they want to destroy your values. Mm-hmm. So they want to just humiliate a person to such extent, they want them to refuse from their values. It's really, horrible. So yeah, repressions are awful. What also Belarusian people experience, and I'm not sure if the Russians at the moment experience this, is transnational repressions. Mm-hmm. Belarusian people have no possibility to renew their documents anymore. Belarusian embassies abroad, they can't prolong passports to Belarusian people, and we're in very difficult condition. We can't return home just to renew documents, and can't do this abroad. So very soon it will be 500,000 stateless people living in exile. Of course, we're trying, to face these challenges, answer these challenges. We are working on project of passports of New Belarus. Mm-hmm. It's very unprecedented, but we are trying. Or role of people are put on the terrorist list in Interpol. And anybody, I'm terrorist, I'm extremist, in my country. And if people who are traveling might have problems, in airports or so ever. People who are going for demonstrations abroad, just, really for Belarus, against regime, for political prisoners, their relatives inside the country, they're getting detained and terrorized. Their property is confiscated. So, and we have to, to face, these new challenges, not only as Belarusian people, but also international community, and put this question to Lukashenko's regime, and punish them for this. So, but despite all of this, repressions in Belarus, in exile, people are not giving up. It's really, I'm so fascinated by Belarusians who, despite all these difficulties, they continue to resist inside the country undergroundly, who are more or less free in exile. We can do, of course, this more openly. But what's important for us, that we are coordinated we have very stable structures of democratic forces. We are constant cooperation with media, with our civil society, so we are strong enough, to defeat Lukashenko. But no one war and no one fight cannot be won if you're alone. We need allies. Ukraine needs allies. All other countries that now are oppressed by Russia also need allies to defeat this enemy.
Well, thank you very much, Svetlana, for that. Absolutely. And I think over to you, Yulia, as well, before I start to bring in some of the audience. Svetlana said about the situation in Russia, of course, the repressive techniques of the Russian government have proven to be extraordinarily effective. And it's not just, of course, Russians who have become political prisoners, but also Americans, many people from other countries as well, French, Germans and others who have been seized. I mean, similarly in Belarus, there's been citizens of other countries taken as well, because the tools that have been perfected at home have proven to be very effective abroad. And in fact, as you were just mentioning about the Trump administration, having to work to release some prisoners, we've just had the release of Mark Fogel, the American school teacher, and all of this is done as a sort of a set piece. It's become prisoner diplomacy. Not just the use of political prisoners for repression at home, but also to basically use the capture of foreign citizens for political games abroad. I mean, what kind of advice would you have, for those of us sitting here? Because this has been such an effective tool that it seems highly unlikely that this is going to stop. Do you have any particular advice for everyone here about how to handle this from your own experience?
Well, I don't think that I am an expert in this area, but I want to start from the point that one person was released yesterday, but as I've read from the news, another was captured today. And of course, it's like Putin's and many other dictators, repression and dictatorship machine. They are all the time inventing some very strange ways to release, like Putin does it now, to release their friends, spies, and so on, exchanging them to the hostages in Russia, for example. I don't think there is any other example, just advice just to ask us to help us to fight with this regime, because as soon as it's fallen, so it wouldn't be such situation, like people are coming to the country and are taken at the airports like hostages. Of course, it must show other people that something wrong is going on in our countries. If you are very far away in democratic Europe or in the United States, sometimes it's very difficult to understand what an awful situation is there. I would say even for me, when you are living normal life and then the other day you just realize that your husband was poisoned, you couldn't even realize and even believe by yourself, but you see him very close, that it's true. And I understand that for people in the United States, it sounds like fairy tale. The same with hostages. All the time it sounds like, it's a special case. It's something like happened just once. But it's system. It's how Putin lives. It's how Putin manages Russia. And all people in the world must understand this, because, look, there are a lot of things has happened. Repressions, small repressions. First of all, like probably, 15 years ago, people just were imprisoned for 2 weeks. And everybody thought, like, come on, just 2 weeks, that's nothing. Then annexion of Crimea happened. And everybody was like, okay, there are sanctions just against local officials in Crimea. But let's be honest, Putin doesn't care about local officials in Crimea. He's just happy very much about these sanctions. It's like placed on his hand. And then the war has happened, and it continues. Every day, a lot of people are dying. And it's again, I think that the West is not putting enough pressure on Putin. It's very important to remember that even there will be negotiations probably very soon. I'm sure that, of course, it will be stopped probably for 1 year or 2, and then Putin will just keep his strength. He will be stronger in 2 years, he will start again because he's criminal, he's boss of mafia, he's killing people, he's imprisoning people, he's poisoning people. Nothing will change. So I don't think that it's like the easiest point which we need to discuss. We need to discuss how to stop this system, how to stop dictatorship in Russia. And it's very important to remember that a lot of people in Russian prisons every day, the amount became more and more. And those people are against war, against Putin regime. And of course, they need our war support.
No, thank you, Yulia, and also Svetlana. I'd like to turn over to the audience. And I apologise, I can't quite see over here because the light is so bright. So if anyone has their hand over raised in this corner, wave it. But Leah Caterpillar, I can see you here at the back. And if you just, if everyone could introduce themselves, I won't recognise everybody, but please introduce yourselves. You ask a question.
My name is Leah Quartapelle. I'm a member of parliament from Italy. I have two questions, very quick. One, we have seen the new US administration stopping a lot of collaboration projects in different areas of the world. Does this mean something for the object, for the subject of this talk, which is Russian diaspora all over the world? Second, what would an agreement regarding Ukraine look like from Russia and from Belarus? What the consequences for your work and for the people in your countries?
Thank you, Leah. Svetlana?
Thank you, Leah, so much for your 4.5 years support of our movement. Really appreciate your job. And as for this cut of assistance to different projects, of course, it influenced a lot, first of all, our media projects. And actually, many of free media of Belarus who are in exile because they are declared as extremists and terrorists inside the country, we have to work from abroad, they are on the eve of dying out. We have to understand that, I understand that some projects can be stopped for a while, like civil society projects or, but not media, because we have to counter propaganda every day. As only they stop broadcasting, believe me, Russia will fuel Belarusian propaganda even more, and it will poison minds of Belarusians, and abroad. So that's why, of course, I want to believe that this assistance will be renewed in a short period of time, because there will be people who will convey new government about a necessity to support media and Belarusian media in particular. I understand that so many countries, suffered because of this cut, but as we explained to our partners, almost all of them, they have state behind them, and somehow this media will be supported. Belarusian state is seized by a dictator, and Belarusian media have to survive and to live and work from exile. So hopefully it will be renewed, but now, just to help our media to not to die out, we are of course asking our European partners, to fill this gap and to help to survive Belarusian media. And maybe Yulia, then we'll come to another question.
I would like just to mention that I absolutely agree, and it's a very difficult situation, especially for independent medias in Russia as well, who have to flee the country, and I think it's a very difficult situation for them, because it's not like completely possible to do some kind of independent projects from Russia. Of course, a lot of them just left country for one day without anything. They built everything from zero for 2.5 years here, and now I think that they need our support, probably European support, and it's very important to remember about these independent media.
And as for second question, Leah, about deal or peace talks on Ukraine, there are two main scenarios of these negotiations. First one is when it will be just peace, and Ukraine will be winner in this war. And this just peace will give opportunity to Belarus and so many other countries, to change for better, because the fate of Belarus and Ukraine deeply connected. And the victory of Ukraine will be a huge possibility for Belarusian people, to resist openly in Belarus again. But also it will give chance to Moldova, to Georgia, if necessary, Armenia, and so on and so forth. And that's why, while helping Ukraine, you are helping the whole region. While putting Ukraine in strong position during these negotiations, you put also Belarus, Moldova, and other countries in the strong position as well. In the case if Ukraine, I don't want to say even to be defeated, but it will not be the outcome of the war as we hopefully all together want, it will be status quo in Belarus for many, many years. It means that Putin will be still, strong enough to keep his influence on Belarus. There will be continuing process of Russification of our country. Russia will integrate in many spheres of Belarusian lives, and it will be like creeping occupation of our country with allowance of Lukashenko, who is serving now to Putin's interests, not to Belarusian nation interests. And we can lose Belarus for years until the next moment, will appear. And moreover, if Ukraine doesn't win this war, it will embolden Putin. Julia has already mentioned this. They will take strength, and in some years they will knock already doors of European countries. And our nearest neighbors, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, they will be the hugest threat because of this. And if you appease dictator once, he will cross red line after red line, and nothing will stop him anymore.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, sir. The microphone, and please introduce yourself. Thank you. I think it's on. Okay. Yeah.
Vazit Aberdze from Radio Free Europe's Georgian service. And I would like to ask a question about Georgia. I think it perfectly qualifies as Russian repression abroad. So to both of the ladies, I'm sure you're aware of what's happening there and what is unfolding now in Georgia. One might say can draw many parallels in comparison to what happened in Russia first and then Belarus. So I would like to ask what advice to have to those people who are protesting today in Georgia. What should they do not to repeat the same mistakes and not to arrive at a similar conclusion as in Russia and Belarus? Thank you very much.
I will answer. First of all, I want to say that I have a big admiration of opposition of Georgia now. We all seen these huge rallies last month, and it was very inspiring and great to see how many people on the streets, and it's very important to support these people. And it's also about hybrid inventions in which Putin is very good, about all the countries around Russia, and not of them, of course. It's very important to support Georgian opposition, and it's difficult to give any advice because we are in the same situation, and probably we need to ask advice from them, because as we've seen, they are very good, and a lot of people on the street.
Yeah, of course, on behalf of Belarusian people, Belarusian nation, I want to convey words of support and admiration, for Georgian people who are protecting their rights at the moment. I just, when I was watching you after elections, so-called elections, I really saw Belarus 2020, and I was praying that repressions that we experienced back in 2020 will not be repeated in Georgia, because it's awful. I know that it might be increasing, yeah, but still, I really don't want you to go through what we went through. And I just wish you to stay strong, and not to lose hope. Our fight continues already 4.5 years, and I see how Belarusian people are not giving up. And you, like Georgians, hot nation, and of course, I understand you need support of democratic allies, and not only, as I said, words of condemnations and real actions. And actually, today, talking to representatives of many countries, Georgia was mentioned many times. So you really have this support. And of course, as Julia has said, you are experiencing a hybrid attack on your country. But if you have will, if you have will and determination, you will stand till the end. I'm meeting your president on Sunday, and it's a good opportunity, to convey our solidarity. You are also in very difficult situation. At least we have one border with the European Union, and the threat to Belarus is perceived as a threat to whole European alliance, and a little bit further, you are surrounded with other countries, but I know that you will manage. So let's inspire each other. We can, if there is necessity, share our experience, how we worked with the dictatorship in Belarus, how we worked with nomenclatura, just to split them. So we are open for any communication with you, of course, and please, our best regards for the nation.
Thank you. And there was a young man at the back here as well.
Anton Trigup, Ost-West German TV channel. I have a question for Yulia, but before I ask it, I would like to thank you for your commitment, Yulia, and for your commitment as well, Svetlana. You mentioned the peace negotiations. How would the strategy of the Russian opposition look like after the war ends? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I think for me, it's very easy to answer to this question, because probably I'm a few people in opposition who is thinking about future. I'm doing right now a lot. As you know, I started my political way just this year, but I have already did forum where we discussed the future of Russia. We had very good experts, and I think it's very important to be, as I mentioned in my speech, to be prepared. That's why during this forum we discussed a lot the system, what should be changed. Experts were really good, like professors who left Russia and are working now in the best universities in the world. And we will continue to do this. So I'm sure that we will be prepared if the changes come.
Well, thank you. I thought I saw someone's hand over here. Maybe they left already. Is there another question, perhaps, that I might have missed? Well, I mean, I think we have a few minutes left. I don't know whether Ambassador Heusken might want to, say something, or to ask something, or anybody else in the audience. But I certainly know that from all of our perspective, I mean, having, both of you here at such a momentous time of such, dramatic change, not just is deeply inspiring, but also humanizes the situation. Because, I mean, both of you and your families have really paid the highest possible prices for really sticking to the things that you believe. You have moral clarity, you have deep values, and you have an incredible courage that I think for all of us is also sobering at this point. Because, I suspect that many people here in this room, no matter where they come from, and as you've stressed before, you may think everything seems very comfortable one day and isn't, kind of perhaps on the next. And we also maybe all have to stand up and be challenged. So I just kind of wondered, as kind of you leave us to go out to our next events. If there's any one thing that you would still like to say that you felt you have not had a chance to say, and that you would like to, encourage us all to be thinking about and to do as we leave this room. Svetlana, and then perhaps to Yulia.
No, maybe I once again want to mention our heroes, political prisoners who, despite all the pressure they have in prison, they continue to fight. They don't betray their values. And I'm glad to see Evgenia Karamurza with us, who had chance, to experience this feeling when was meeting her husband after he has been released. And I also projecting a lot, this moment when I will meet my husband and, living now through all this pain. It will be a delightful moment. And of course, I'm thinking about Julia, who will never experience such feeling of hugging her husband never more. But I know that Alexei and Sergei and all the political prisoners in prisons, they believe in us. And Alexei believed in democratic opposition. They believe in democratic society, and they rely on us. They truly, they are behind the bars, in full isolation. I hope they know that we are fighting for them. And maybe some messages are still, have possibility to go there, and just they know that they're not abandoned, that the democratic world doesn't have any deals with dictators, that our political prisoners are not perceived as bargaining chips, for democratic world, because they really heroes that we have to take example from, people who sacrificed their freedom. Some of them sacrificed their lives to give us all opportunity to continue this fight.
Very well said. And Yulia?
First of all, Fiona, thank you so much for your kind words about us. And, well, it's very important for me to continue Alexei's work. Yeah. For him, for our family, for my children, to give them example, to be example for people inside country. I know that there are a lot of Alexei's supporters who became now my supporters. And they are writing me messages, they are writing me letters, they are now in awful condition. We are sitting here and discussing, like, Putin is bad, he is terrorist, he is doing awful things, but they are not able to raise their voice. Right. So for me, it's very important to be with them, to show them that politician can have a human face, that it happened with me one day. Of course, I was like a supportive wife. I was all the time very close to my husband. But now I'm alone. I'm a politician by myself. And I want to give this example to all these people that we couldn't back down. We couldn't give up. One day, Russia will be free. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much to both of you. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us.
Let me just say at the end, I think for everybody here, this was a very moving town hall. It was wonderful to have you here. When I saw you, of course, it came into my memory how you went up to the stage a year ago, learning that your husband had died. And I think for everybody, this was one of the most moving moments of last year's. And the courage that you showed, I think, has inspired so many people. So I'm very happy that we were able to have it here again this year. We have been partnering for many years. It is very important that we keep this on stage, that people don't forget about so many people that are already forgotten, but you speak for them. And I think it's very important when we also discuss politics, we know what is happening in the background. And there's one thing I learned, having negotiated many years with Russians. The only thing Putin understands is the language of strength, and he smells weakness. And this is when I read now, when I hear about the way that, I mean, you were praising President Trump for getting some release. I think this is very good. But at the same time, when you see that at the beginning of a negotiation, Trump gives up trump cards instead, NATO membership and giving up territory. I don't think this is the right way to negotiate with Russia. I think we have to be on from a politics of strength. And this starts here, this starts in our country, this starts in Europe, and I hope this message from you again comes out of this. And this is an hour of Europe, and we have in Europe to get our act together and see to it that we stand up. Somebody, I think it was Kaja Kallas, who said, democracy, freedom has to be stronger than tyranny. And this is something I think we have to adhere to. So thank you all for coming. Wonderful that you all came. And again,